Hi, in today's video, I'm gonna talk about arithmetic in Max. So how to do operation like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and I'm talking about the modulo operators and doing some expression in Max. So let's start with the first concept. So addition. So how to sum two numbers in Max. So in order to do that, we have to create a new object and click and type the plus symbol here, and we have already a first suggestion in this pop-up window that say add two numbers, output the result. Good. So we are expecting that these two inlets we are gonna give the two arguments, the two operands of the plus object, and once it gets triggered, because we see that we have an hot inlet, the result is gonna get outputted. But we have to consider a couple of things. The first one is that we have to consider the two type of inlets. So how do we set the two operands in this within this object, within this patch? So our purpose is to say a plus a plus b equal c. That's gonna be our function. So, and we can set, for instance, two integer and we want to sum both of them and display the value here in another integer. So the thing is that we have to keep in mind which message gets first into this object, because as you know, the cold inlet stores information, the other inlet store the information and output the value. With that, I mean that if I just, let's say, press 2, it knows that by default, since we don't give any argument, the operand is gonna be initialized as a 0. So 2 plus 0 equal 2. Now, if I put here 4, we should know already that nothing get outputted. So if I put here a 4, nothing changes. And in order to output the result, we have to send just a blank, or we just send another number, either or the same one. So we can retype 2, and the result is gonna be again 6. Just let's prove it by changing the result and sending back 2. We have 6. And then if we put another number, let's say 3, we get the output. And we can also put, let's say, 2 and 2. The result is 6, because I didn't change again this one here, but I can send a blank and get the result. Now here we are talking about integer values. And what if I want to sum two floating point numbers, two decimal numbers? In order to do that, I have to again create a new object, say plus, but then I have to specify the data type, and I'm going to initialize the right operand with a 0 and then put a dot. So now I can make two floatums, connect them to the plus object, output also a floatum, and same principle. I can say 2.5 plus 2.5, 5. I can also say increase the number of floating points. We'll see here. It also changes. So same thing for the subtraction. So we are gonna create a new comment, say subtraction, and in this case we need to call the object minus. Same principle. We need two numbers and another floatum or integer box connected to the outlet. So maybe I can just delete this, copy all of this, select all of this and copy and paste it here. Set a minus here. And we have basically the same result. So now we have 2, 1 is -1. This value minus this value is this value here. And for multiplication, same thing. Let's copy this. Let's put a star. Let's write a comment called multiplication and say 2 and 3, 6, and so on. Same thing if we want to operate with floating point numbers. So I put I star here, set the two values, and we get the multiplication. And again, same thing. To perform a division, we just copy all of this, type here division, put the slash here, and we get the same. Of course, this says none, not a number, because 0 divided by 0 is nothing. Or if we have this, it's like infinitive, because we like as I mentioned in previous videos, like Max has a certain memory size dedicated to an operation or an object, so where it's not able to calculate it because it's too big or too small, we say it outputs this symbol inf, which stands for infinity, and you should understand it if you have a basic understanding of math and arithmetic. So another way is to actually subtract the input from a specified inverted inlet. With that, I mean that we can also put an exclamation mark before the subtraction, and in order to perform something like there should be a minus actually, just because I copied this, and now we want to perform something b minus a, which is kind of different, right? And in order to do that, we have to just, let's say, copy and paste this and put an exclamation mark here. Now, if I say 1 and 1, let's say I put 9 and 1, with that I say, and let's also put, let's say, a 9 here and a 1 here. Now we can see that, well, it's not wrong, yeah. So now the difference should be quite clear. Now we are just basically inverting the two operands. So here this operation is like 9 minus 1. And in this case, although it looks similar, the operation is like 1 minus 9. Just by putting an exclamation mark, is like inverting the order of the inlets, although in order to output the number, we have to always send it send a bang and then and also like a number if you like to the first inlet. And we can apply this operation to a division. So we can also say this, copy and paste, put an exclamation mark and say 10 divided by 2, sorry, 10, 5. And then if I put here 10 divided by 2, but again, I should send a bang here. I have 0.2 because it's 2 divided by 10. Good. Now, we want to sometimes get a reminder for a division, because if we divide 5 by 2, so for instance, also 3 might work. 5 by 2, we know that the result is 2.5. But if we want to express this result as a combination of the result plus the remainder, so in this case, gonna be like result 2, remainder 1, because we have still 1 unit left here. We can use the modulo operator. So the modulo operator gets called by creating a new object and putting the percentage symbol. Sorry, I will make just some room in the patch by dragging the object down, so to create some more space. And now we can say, yeah, let's just copy and paste this object here. Boom. And let's say now 2 and 5. What's the result? 1, because 1 is the remainder. Right. So this is going to be called modulo equal remainder. And last thing for this video is to operate with expressions. So we can do not only like a simple operation, but we can combine different operation within an object. So for instance, in an object, we can say sum 2 numbers and then divide by something else, or multiply 2 numbers and then add another value and so on. So let's create a new object and call it exp. And as you can see here in the description says evaluate a mathematical expression. So, and if I click enter and I don't give any mathematical expression, the object gets output an error, and in fact in the Max console we can say missing an expression. So the object doesn't work by itself, but it needs the argument is mandatory. As you can see here, expression is required. So we can do something like a sum, just to which is still an expression, but doesn't add anything more to this object here. But let's start from this. So I'm gonna use $i1 and plus $i2, and I stays for integer, and the one it's referring to the first inlet. So now we can say connect to integer boxes, and yeah, for now, like this time, let's output the message to the Max console. We can even clear this. And now we can perform a sum by saying 2 and 3, and we have the result. And of course, the same problem occurs because we have here a hot inlet and cold inlet, so we have to always trigger this at the end of the operation. And if we want to perform, let's say, these two operation, and then we want to multiply this result by 3, let's say, we can do something like add in parentheses here. So we give like priority and we separate this operation by this operation. So the addition and the multiplication gets different priorities. And now we can see that if I send 3 and then a 2 and then multiply by 3, the result should be 15. In fact, the result gets 15. So once again, I set the two values, they get added, they get summed, and then after this operation, this other operation occurs. Now, a classical example in many programming books and tutorials is to do a Fahrenheit Celsius conversion, and we can perform that by doing by expressing this calculation through an expression, and also a combination of a chain of different arithmetic operations. So let's start with chaining operation. So we know that let's make some room. I'm just gonna put this down here. So we want to basically give some Fahrenheit values and convert them into Celsius. So Celsius, sorry for misspelling that, and is equal to Fahrenheit and minus 32 and multiplied by 5 divided by 9. So that's what we want to achieve with max. And let's start with the plus operator. Actually minus operator, minus 32. So by giving an argument here in the minus object, it's like sending the right operand here. So we are going to give let's say an integer, a floating point number, and we are going to also put a dot here just to be sure that this gets this object works with floating point numbers, with decimal numbers. Then we see here that after this operation we have to multiply the result by 5. So we do multiplied by 5 and we connect the output to this object here, and then we have division by 9. So I create another object, division by 9. And we output the result as an integer, as a decimal number. So let's consider 50 Fahrenheit. We go the Celsius. So Celsius Fahrenheit. Good. if we want to perform this as a expression, we have to create a new object, say exp. And this is gonna make like patching simpler, because here we are using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 objects, and with expression we basically compress all these three objects in just one. So we say don't, as we have seen before, we can say $F1 minus 32 points. Then we multiply by 5 and 5 point again, and we divide by 9 point. Also, I forgot to keep the decimal number here, so I have to add also a dot here and another dot here. And now you have a better representation of Celsius. So same thing here. So this block here has been transformed in this expression, which is basically the same thing that we wrote here in another way. So this is quite similar. This is basically how you usually perform a mathematical operation on paper. Probably you remember that when you were at school, or if you are still at school. And then we connect these two objects, these two floating points, one to the inlet and one to the outlet. And actually we can also send this one just to see the difference between, which shouldn't be any, but let's increase the width. You can see that we have the same result. So I hope that was interesting, although basics, and but this working with expression is quite useful, and also for audio processing, understanding how arithmetics works in Max. It's super important, because when we are going to talk about computer music and signals, we most of the time use plus operator, multiplication, division, and so on. So that was for today, and see you next week. Bye.